All right, well, it's a little bit after 2 now, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Keep an eye on this. We can admit people if they show up. We're at 22 now. So we're going to show you a little bit about Peer+. This is a tool that we've used funding from the National Science Foundation to create in Runestone. Brad, do you want to talk a little bit about Runestone?
Sure. So as it says, Runestone, the mission of Runestone is to democratize textbooks for the 21st century. So to me, that means several things. It means first and foremost that we want to make great textbooks freely available to all students. We want to make textbooks that belong in the 21st century, like they should be interactive and intelligent and innovative. And as an overall system, we want to support teachers and students and authors and researchers on their journey. So lately, I've been trying to describe Runestone as a leap, a learning, engineering, and analytics portal. So by going to Runestone Academy, no matter what role you serve, you're going to get something that kind of helps you do your job better. Runestone started in 2011. It was a sabbatical project when I was a professor at Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. And starting with 60 students at Luther in the fall of 2012, this past school year, the 2021-2022 school year, we've served over 60,000 registered students. That's about half of our traffic. The other half of our traffic is just search engine related, or students who just kind of are reading without registering. I figure that since its inception in 2012, we've now served in various places over 1 million students. Recently, we've filed for nonprofit status, and we've also partnered with another project called the Pretext Project, which is a math project for authoring math textbooks. And so over this summer, we'll be converting our books to be written in Pretext, and we'll be then hosting a whole bunch of additional, like 100 different math textbooks on Runestone Academy and making those available. So the project is growing. I've got more work to do than I'll ever complete in my lifetime. And I'm very excited to be working with Barb. Barb and I have been partners in this project almost since the very beginning. And she's brought a lot of great ideas and features on board, including what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to stop and get out of the way and turn it back to Barb.
All righty. And you didn't sort of say you are the founder of Runestone.
True. Founder and chief developer. So when anything goes wrong, it's my fault. So.
All right. So what is peer instruction, if you're not familiar with that term? So this was created by Eric Mazer when he was at Harvard University. He realized that students weren't learning a whole lot in his physics lectures. And the idea is to improve student understanding, originally in physics, though it's moved on from there. And the way that he originally created it was students were supposed to read material before a lecture and then take some sort of assessment to give them points for doing that reading, either before or at the beginning of lecture. And then during lecture, the instructor would stop at least every 10-15 minutes, because research shows students stop paying attention in lecture every 10-15 minutes. So every 10-15 minutes, the instructor would stop, display a very hard multiple choice question. The students would answer individually, sometimes with like eye clickers devices, if you're familiar with those. They would discuss the answer with the peers, perhaps around them, answer individually again, and then the instructor would show the result of both answers and lead a discussion about any questions and any issues that people had with it. So a lot of you went for A. Well, why was A wrong, or B? And peer instruction has been around for well over 10 years now. So there's a lot of evidence for its effectiveness. Oops, jumped too fast. So some of the research on peer instruction shows that there's twice the learning gains using peer instruction versus traditional lecture in physics. They have something called the Force Concept Inventory, which is a standardized test that they can use. It's increased student understanding and engagement in several different kinds of STEM courses, physics, biology, and computer science. In CS, in both introductory and advanced courses, it's reduced failure rates, improved retention, and increased final exam performance. And this is a good paper to read if you want to get started thinking about the research in peer instruction. So next thing is I want to show you the tool that we've created. So this is the tool that we've added to Runestone, where instructors can, as soon as you come into the tool, it'll start the first vote and you can see how many votes you'll see as we do this, as we're going to go through an example. You'll see how many votes have been done. And then when you're ready, you can stop vote 1. It'll give a countdown. Then you can enable discussion. And one of the cool features we have now is a chat feature, so that, and we automatically pair people to try to maximize the number of people who answer with different answers. And then we start vote 2. And then we can stop vote 2 once we see, another nice feature in the enable discussion is it'll tell you how many people are sending messages. So you can sort of keep track of what's happening. And then when you start vote 2 again, it'll display how many people are voted, and you can stop vote 2 and you can go on to the next question. You can also hide or show a graph chart that shows, it shows the results of the first vote and the second vote. So to get everybody there, we need to add you all to an ebook. And this is a book that I've created based on one of the books I use in my course. There's no students using this particular custom course. In Runestone, you can create a custom course from any ebook. So if you already have a Runestone login, if you go there and you click on the person icon, you can click on change course, and then you'll find a list of the current courses you have. And at the bottom of that list, there'll be enroll in a course. And when you do that, you want to enter the course name test-py for e-int. And I'll put that in the chat window as well. And if you do not have a Runestone login, then you should go to this URL. Can somebody put that in the chat window? Shoot. Blah, blah, blah. Back. Nope. Somebody put there in the chat window. Terrific. So you should be able to go to that and create yourself a login. And when it says what course name, again, use that test-py for e-int. So if I'm in Runestone here, I'm in the book, but if I go to that little person icon, I can change course. You'll see I have a lot of courses. But if I go all the way to the bottom, there's enroll in a course, and that's where I would put the test-py for e-int. And then once I've done that, it will take me to that course. So if I say, let me go to that one again, test. And I can tell because in the top left corner, it'll have that name. So let me go back to that slide. And just let us know when you finish in the chat window, perhaps when you're in the book, or if you're having any problems. Good, some people are in, that's good. So people that aren't in, are you having any problems? No, not, so just taking some time to get there.
I'm having problems, so I think I can sort them out. It's just taking a few minutes to
Sure, no
all the
worries.
policies.
No worries. We're just waiting for people to join. I know we just had one new person who joined us. Welcome to the webinar. And we are just adding an ebook. If you already have a login in Runestone, you should just be able to go click on the person icon at the top right, and then click on the change course and enroll in a course. And for the course name, use this. This is just a practice course where I've already put peer instruction questions. I think I'm in Python for Everybody Interactive. Yeah, it should look like this once you're there. Python for Everybody Interactive, but the top, how you can really tell is the top left will say test-py for e-int. That's the name of the book. that you're in, yeah, okay, great. All right. Does anybody need us to wait?
I'm sorry, could you show that
again?
whatever the test? Okay, I see it now. Thanks. Hopefully this time it'll accept everything.
So I'm having trouble. It's not accepting. I don't know what the error is.
It is case sensitive, so make sure you capitalize the T on test.
No, it won't even let me sign up.
So why don't
Right.
we stop sharing and you can share your screen.
Great. Okay.
See if we can figure it out for you.
Okay. Great. So. Okay. So I didn't see an error message. So I
So you have to put a
the-
password
I
in.
did. Okay.
And then for the course name is where you're going to replace what's currently there
Oh, okay.
and put the capital Think.
What was it? Remind me.
It's in
Test.
Oh, test
capital T.
for test.
Yeah, capital T on the test.
Okay.
I just put in the chat. You can copy paste it.
Yep.
I don't have to find chat. Okay, great. I'll do that. Oh, yeah, I see it.
And then click on the I have read and accepted policy terms. And I can't see the rest of it right now.
Actually, it's easier to type. Oops, I thought it was. If I do this, it does everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it was at the end of it. PY for E-int. Okay. And then if you scroll down,
did it do it?
yep. And then there's sorry, not today, if you don't want to donate anything. So scroll down and say, sorry, not today. Click that button. And that should take you to the right place. Yep. So you see on the top left, it says test-py for E-int. All right. Terrific. Anybody else need help with it? Everybody's in. All right. Go back to sharing my screen. All right. So then we should be able to go in and try it. So if you go to the person icon now, and you'll be students, but I'm going to go to instructor. So click on the peer instruction student. I'm going to go to peer instruction instructor. And then we'll just click the very first one, PI basics functions. And you should see this problem that I'm displaying. And you should be able to go ahead and answer by just selecting something. And there's a submit button. Mine says check me, but yours will say submit.
I'm sorry, how did you get to that screen that you're currently on?
Sure. So go to the little person icon on the top right and click on peer instruction student. I'm going to go to peer instruction instructor.
Okay.
Oops, 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 oops. I just messed up. This may mess things up because I came out of here. And then select the very first, that brings you to a list of peer instruction things. Go to the very first one. So
Yeah,
peer-
since you went out and back in, Barb, everybody's got to make sure they answer again.
Okay, everybody, since I left, come back and came back in, if everybody could answer again. Right now, I just have 8 answers. And you can answer more than once. You could change your answer. All right, so it seems like people have sort of stopped answering a bit. So I'm going to stop vote 1. And you should see this countdown. All right, I'm going to go ahead and enable discussion. So this should pair you up with somebody else to chat with. Now, I don't see it here because I'm an instructor, not a student, but you should see a chat area where you can you see what somebody else answered and you're supposed to chat about why did you pick what you picked. So try typing in that. And then good. So I'm seeing messages being sent. That's great. And you should see other people's responses. And I can sort of, if you see my interface, I can see how many messages have been sent, which gives me a sort of a way to keep track of what's happening. And I can sort of, if that stops changing, then I can sort of say, okay, well, nobody's really talking anymore, which is useful because when you do peer instruction normally in person, people turn and talk to the people around them. So you can go by the noise. You can kind of tell when they stop talking because the noise kinds to drop down. But in this case, we have the number of messages sent. So I can just keep an eye on that. When that seems to stop changing a whole lot, then I can say, okay, I'm going to start the second vote. But I'm going to wait because I'm still seeing you guys chatting. Good. You're better at sending messages than my students are. And the goal is for this is to handle people that are remote as well as people that are in person. So with COVID especially, we've had times where we're doing hybrid, where I have some students that are in person, then I have a bunch that are watching the class via Zoom. So they're synchronous, but they're remote. And so they don't have anybody to discuss with unless we do this sort of thing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start vote 2. So you should be able to vote again now. And you can see that I now have vote 2 answers. And that's changing. And I know how many I had from the first vote. So I can sort of say, okay, I'm expecting about 20 people to vote. Because if you're like me, not everybody shows up for lecture, unfortunately. And often we find a little bit of a drop off from the first vote to the second vote. You may handle this different ways with how you give points for doing peer instruction. So I'm going to go ahead and stop vote 2. That'll give people still 5 seconds to finish up. And then I can look at this graph that shows the results of the both votes. And then I could discuss the answer. So I could also check it. Oh, no, it's not working, Brad, for me to check it. That's something we were trying to fix so that the instructor could check the answer to see what it was. But in this case, it should be 3.
I think it's just because you stopped the vote. And so that automatically disables everything.
Oh, well, that's when I'd
You
want to
should-
show it would be after the vote.
Yeah, well, noted.
Okay. We're still working, everyone. We're still working on this and trying to figure it out. All right. So did anybody have any issues, any problems with that? Were you able to chat? Nobody seems to. Yes, went well. Good. We did have an issue in my class that we think we figured out why, that some students said that they didn't get the chat interface, but we think it's because they never bothered to answer the question. Because if they didn't answer the question, it wouldn't have connected them to anyone. All right, good. I don't see any issues or problems. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next question. Now, typically what I'd be doing is sharing my slides. And when I hit a slide that I'd have a picture of the peer instruction question, I'd come back to this interface. So typically now I'd go back to my slides for a bit. Could I talk about the rating part? So on your chat thing, one of the things we want to do is we want to also serve somebody who's asynchronous. So some of my students might not attend lecture synchronously. Some of them might be sick or have other reasons why they're attending later. I still want them to be able to answer peer instruction questions and have that experience of feeling like they're chatting with someone. So the idea was, let's ask people to rate the responses and then perhaps serve somebody who's attending asynchronously a highly rated response so that they get some of that feel of being with someone else. Of course, Brad also has the idea, but we should make a chat bot that can chat with you about it, which would be fun. But we haven't done that yet. So hopefully that answers that question. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do one more time. Let's go ahead and do the next question. So you should see that your question has changed and you should go ahead and answer. And I'm not seeing any answers yet, but that's okay. Let me take you a moment. Remember, we don't really care if you're correct right now. It doesn't matter. Someone said they had to refresh to see the new question. Same, okay. Other people did not. I get my calculator. So I've got 15 answers, 16. Yeah, we're at 19, and I know that we had 20 before, so that's probably about what we're going to get. So I'm going to go ahead and stop vote 1. You still have a time countdown. All right, let's try one more time. Enable discussion. We're up to 26 participants now. That's good. Well, one of the features we're thinking of adding is having the students say whether they're attending in person or remotely, because we did trial this in one of the courses I teach this last semester in the winter. And students prefer just chatting with the people around them. But if they are remote, they do like having automatic partners so they can still chat. So we might add am I attending in person or am I remote feature, and then we may only pair the remote people with the chat interface, or make that an instructor choice, that you allow people to answer only in person, they answer people only in the chat, or some hybrid where the people that are in person can chat with each other and the people that are remote get automatic pairing. We'd like to explore all of those options. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start vote 2. You can answer again. Yes, we are recording this, so you should be able to see that. I see in the chat someone was saying they're having issues with the internet. And we're already at 19, so I'm going to go ahead and stop vote 2. Still have 5 seconds to finish up. And then we could show that graph and see, do we see any difference? So this time we had more people vote for B on the second answer. This is in Python, the single slash versus the double slash means different things. A single slash means decimal, so floating point division rather than integer division. So great. So that's how it works. And I'm going to go back to my slides for a moment. Any immediate responses or things that you guys wanted to ask about? Oops, I should go back to the chat window then. If you don't answer the next time, does it count as no answer or keep your answer? It doesn't keep your answer for the second vote. I didn't see any graphs. Were we supposed to see them? I was sharing my screen, so you could have seen them. They aren't showing on your interface, they're showing on mine. So normally in lecture, I'd be projecting that. What about different types of questions, such as, what do you mean, Richard?
Like short answer, stuff like that.
No, usually peer instruction questions are multiple choice questions. You can have other kinds of questions in the ebook. We have other kinds of questions. I don't think, Brad, does it care? It does care right now. It does expect multiple choice, right?
Yes, it 100% expects it to be a multiple choice. Yep.
And Evelyn says she's interested in the asynchronous, right? So we're working on that, trying to add that capability for fall so that the person who's asynchronous can still answer and get paired with somebody else's prior explanation, a saved explanation. All right. So this ebook that you're working in, this is an interactive version of, there's one of my colleagues, Dr. Chuck Severance at the School of Information at the University of Michigan, has a Python for Everybody, very famous MOOC that's had lots of people take it. And his original materials are here, and he had a static book. So I and some of my students have been adding interactive content and more materials to that book. Like I've added process-oriented guided inquiry learning or POGIL activities, adaptive persons problems, done some media computation in here if you're familiar with that, so picture manipulation. I've also been creating online courses that use this book, and I'm making a 4-course series. 2 of them are already published, and the third one I have finished, but they're not published yet. It should be published soon, and I'm working on the 4th one. So there are on these free online courses you can also look at that use materials in this book. Come on, why doesn't that want to go? Oh, so how do I view peer instruction questions? And so as we just did, you come into the little person icon, and if you're a student, you click on peer instruction student. If you're an instructor, you click on peer instruction instructor. One note is the instructor must make the assignment visible. So one of the things that you can do with a book is when you make assignment visibles, it shows up in the table of contents. There's an assignments page. Now, peer instruction questions don't show up there, but they're not visible to students until you make them visible. So I usually wait to make things visible until just before lecture. And then if you're to be an instructor, if you want to try these things out and be an instructor, what you'd want to do is create a custom course for your students to register for. And you can create a custom course from any of the ebooks that exist on Runestone. So you would click on the person icon at the top, go to change course, create a course, and then when this goes to that create a change course page, there's a create a course at the top, and you could click on that, and you would want to make a new course, a unique name. And like I run my course every semester, so I have in there like Win 22. So you make a unique name for each semester. And then if you want to create a new peer instruction assignment, what you do is create an assignment. So again, if you click on the little person icon, you can go to the instructors page if you're an instructor. And then you can click the assignments tab, and there's an add button there. And I could then enter a unique name to create a new assignment. So let me show that a moment. So I'm still sharing that. So I can go back to here. So this is the book. I can go to the instructors page since I'm an instructor. Here's the assignments tab. Come on. It takes a moment to load because I have a lot of assignments in this book. What I've done is copy all the assignments I give in my course. And I give a lot of them, as you can see, including some of my midterms are here. So you're welcome to reuse any of these things. They're in alphabetical order. So I do have already a bunch of peer instruction questions. They all start with PI dash. So PI turtle, PI unit tests, regex. So this course, I cover quite a bit of stuff. So like here's HTML questions. To see the problems, I would click on problems. I can preview any of the problems by just clicking on the name. So which of the following is false about HTML? And then I can also search for more questions. So I could look for things that I want to add. So let's create a new one. So I'll just say I'll add PI list test. So create a new assignment. And then one of the things I can do, I can either, if I was creating a reading assignment, I can click readings, but this is a problem thing. So I'm going to problems. This gives me a table of contents of the book. And we already have multiple choice questions here at the end of every chapter. So I could look at some of those to see if any of those I want to use. And if I said, and clicking on the question will let me preview it. So say I like this first one maybe. So then I can select it. I forget which one that was. Well, this one. So I can select it. When I do that, it adds it automatically here. So let's say I want to grab a couple of these as peer instruction questions. So let's see, this one's number 5. So they'll show up here. And then to make it a peer instruction, The other thing I have to do is right here is check this peer instruction activity. And then I'd want to make it visible to students. I could also change this due date, whatever. If I save that now, and now if you go to your peer instruction student, I'm going to go to peer instruction instructor, I should see that here. So I see now PI list test is here. So that's how one of the ways I can use questions that already exist in the book. I can also add, we have been adding questions from question banks. So if you're familiar with the CS peer instruction questions, so Beth Simon is one of the people that's been working on these for a while with Leo Porter and other people, Dan Zangaro, Cynthia Taylor. So I've already been adding peer instruction questions from Dan Zangaro. So he has a CS1 in Python. So I've added all of his questions to the book, and you can find those. We've used his initials at the beginning of all those questions. So if I was wanting to add more questions to that peer instruction question, I'm going to go back to that. It takes a little bit of time to load the assignments. So PI list test, right now there's 2 problems. I could do a search and I could say I'm looking for all Dan Zangaro questions. So DZ dash, do a search. And I see, and I could also limit it by a chapter. So I could say, I want to see all of his questions with respect to lists. And then I could see each one of these. So I can look at them. Decide if I want to add any of these. So let's say I want to add that one. I can say how many points, add it to the assignment. And I could change the grading here. One of the things we're trying to add is I want them to not get credit for answering if they don't answer both votes. So that's one of the things we need to add yet, is some way to grade it that way. Otherwise, right now, what we would typically probably do is they don't have to get it correct. They would just do interaction. So if they answer, they would get points. In peer instruction, the idea is that they shouldn't be getting penalized if they get it wrong. This is a learning opportunity. So I could just say interaction and they'd get points for that. So I can look for Dan Zangaro questions. I can also look for Cynthia Taylor. I think we did all of hers with CTP in the front. Oops. Did I do that right? CTP, yeah. So see any chapter. She may not have had lists. Yeah, here we go. So conditionals, here's one of hers with conditionals. And the way that we've named these, since they came from their peer instruction questions were embedded in their slides, and they had lecture numbers and slide numbers. So that's what we've done, is put their initials, then sort of a topic, then what lecture number was it, and then what slide number. So these are already entered. And you can even check these to see, hey, what is the right answer here? So you can see it. And then there's the Canterbury question bank. That's not in this particular book, but you can look for it still. Cantor, am I spelling this right, Mary? QB. Oh. And I have to uncheck this constrained search to this course to find those questions, but then I can find all of these as well. And there's a paper about the Canterbury question bank. Oh, I saw some errors in there. A lot of these are Java. So one of the things we should add is a by language, sort of also to filter by language. And then there's peer-wise questions as well. So also a bunch of questions from peer-wise. All right, and then we're going to be adding more. Oops.
Barb, can I interrupt with a question about those?
Sure.
Are they also, can you browse for them within the sections of Pi for E, or you just have to search for them?
You have to search. They're not in the book proper.
Okay.
You have to search for them.
Got it. Thank you.
And somebody asked if they can use it independently of a textbook. We have textbook with no content. Yeah, so like the Canterbury question bank and the peer-wise question bank are outside of a book. All right. And then we're going to be adding more questions from the CS Peer instruction site that are in Java and C++ this summer. So this is how I was just walking you through, how can you search for questions? So like, this is where I went through the Canterbury question bank and found all of those and just clicked on one of them to see the preview. And then I showed how you can add multiple choice questions from the ebook by opening up a chapter and subchapter sections and then clicking on the question here. You can also write your own peer instruction questions. So if you have some that you've already created in the past, right now we're still using restructured text, but over the summer, as Brad said, we're moving to pretext, which is an XML format. And there's an example here at this link of how it looks in XML. But right now, if you were doing that, you might want to do in RST, which is restructured text. It's a markup language. And if you add the overview book, so if you go back to that little person icon on the top right, and you again change course and you enroll in a course, you'd want to select here, overview, all lowercase. Overview. So like that, all lowercase, and I'll put that in the chat as well. And that book, I already have it, so I'm going to change to that overview. It's here. This book shows you all the things that we can do in Runestone, and plus the source code for how the source looks. So for each question, here's the multiple choice question. Here's what the source looks like. Here's one that has code in it. If I want to see the source, I could see that here. So these are directives in RST. This ... space M choice : says this is a multiple choice question. Then you would create a unique ID here. This practice : T means, is it okay to use in the space practice tool? This would be the actual text of the question. If there's a code block here, is the code block. Then it's followed by each of the answers, and the indentation matters and the blank line matters. And then followed by the feedback, where a dash means it's incorrect and a plus means it's correct. So there's examples of different things. You can have multiple correct answers. You can just specify with the pluses that which ones are correct. So this is useful for starting out. I usually don't write a question from scratch. I usually start with an existing question that's similar and just modify it. Makes it easier because it can be picky. When you do that, you do select a section of the book to add it to. And, so I put it in whatever chapter would make sense of a book. Whatever book you're in is where it's going to be added. And then make sure that when you're finishing your peer instruction assignment, that you make it visible to students before you try to use it with students, and make sure you make it a peer instruction activity, and make sure you save that. And then if you want to learn more, if you're new to Runestone, that there is a blog that has information about support. You can also click on the help documentation tab in the instructors page. So if you're here in instructors page, oops, I'm in the wrong book. I have to change back again, change course. Change course is how you change courses also. So I have to go to a book where I'm the instructor. Here I am. And the hide help documentation, here's information as well as videos, show you how to do things like creating your own assignments, like creating your own multiple choice questions here. There's a whole playlist of videos. What else, Brad? Should I tell them?
Unmute, Brad. On that support page, there's a link to our Slack channel. So in addition to the bi-weekly Runestone meetings, there's also a weekly kind of drop-in time. So every Friday from 2 Central Time to 5 Central Time. I'll put a link in the Slack channel, and you're welcome to just drop in and ask any questions that you may have. And sometimes there may be a lot of people and sometimes hardly anybody.
Yeah, I've also added a link to these slides. That's the last link that I've added in the chat window. And I'll send it out via email to everybody as well. Questions, feedback?
I have a question, Barb.
Sure.
Can you talk about how you use this in class? Like, to what extent you expect students to do the work ahead of time? Because I assume you're somehow making class time to do the peer instruction. Can you walk us through the pre-work and the actual course?
Yeah, so this is a book I used this last semester. So it's the same book, just a custom course that my students registered for. And you'll see in assignments, this is all their assignments from the beginning to the end. And so my course is a second Python programming course that it's required for School of Information majors, but I also get a lot of engineering students who've had C++ who come in to take it because they're interested in some Python. So I start off, I expect people to know what a loop, conditional function, and string are in some language, not necessarily Python. So I started off with doing a lot of POGL or group work exercises. So the book has, in functions, I basically start here with functions. You'll see these group work functions. And so I tell them to work with the people next to them to answer these questions. And POGL activities are group work with the idea that you're trying to construct an activity to guide them to the things you wanted them to learn. So I tried to take all my lectures, instead of telling them, I tried to create exercises for them to learn those things. And then in Padlet, I would ask them, so what did you learn? What questions do you have? And in general, they were learning the things I wanted them to learn. And then I'll go through some slides, or I'll go through some of these. If they had any questions, I'll go through any questions, or I'll have a few slides to ram home any important points I wanted. But I'll have them to do things like predict what you think is going to happen when you run the code below. Of course, they can always cheat and run the code and then answer, but we can tell that in the log. And then we ask them questions about it. So it's kind of a work examples plus practice approach. We also have this clickable code. So click on all the function headers. And if you click on wrong things, it'll highlight the wrong things here in pink. So these are kind of a nice feature for clicking on particular things that you want them to do. There's matching. So match, definitions, terms and definitions to get them to think about those. Then I have them modify the code. And these often are the things I might end up going over in lecture than afterward. How did you modify the code? Let's talk about that. And then some short answers, because POGL are supposed to get you at higher order thinking. So I'll do some short answers. Again, look at the code, predict what you think is going to happen. And then one of the things in particular I've been working on are parsons problems or mixed up code problems. In this case, if you haven't seen these before, we give you all the correct code to solve a problem. You have to drag it from left to right to create it. So I have to drag def greeting, and there were pairs. Oh, I should probably reset. There are pairs of correct and incorrect code. So if comparing these two, one's missing the colon at the end because beginners often have trouble with the colon. And I'm asking for their input, and then I'm going to print hello. And then I need a main also that I call print greeting in, and then I have to actually call the main method. And I can check my result, and I got it all right. But if I got it wrong, since I got it all right, you may have noticed it now doesn't show them the distractors paired because it wants to make it harder on me. So I'm trying to keep students in the zone of proximal development where learning is best. So if I have a lot of errors and I try at least 3 incorrect solutions, it's going to pop up and tell me, hey, you can use the help me button to make it easier. So if I have help, first thing it'll do is get rid of any incorrect code. If it was paired still, it would pair it with the correct to show me, hey, use that one. And then it'll start combining blocks that are the furthest apart, which gives you the most information. And it'll do that till I get down to 3 blocks, and then it'll say, hey, you should be able to put that in order. And I just need to move a couple of things. There we go. So that's the way I run my classes. At first, I do a lot of these group activities. And one of the things I found is if I just told them to work in groups, but they still had to type everything in that they didn't talk, So one of the things I've added is this ability for them to select their teammates to copy answers to, so that only one person has to type things in and then they copy it to everybody. So that encourages them to actually talk to each other. So typically I'll do that, then I'll do some peer instruction questions, then I might give them practice. Go back to here. So particularly like class practice, where's that? There it is. So often then in practice, I'll give them, I'll go back and forth between Parsons problems and active code problems. Let me get back to the way this would have looked originally. So typically I start with a Parsons problem, but we found with Parsons problems that some people would prefer just to write the code themselves because a Parsons problem only has one correct answer. So I give them that option here with this toggle. So if you were given this Parsons problem and you'd rather write the code yourself, you can check that out and then switch to that. And then the second one though is a write code problem with a Parsons problem as a kind of hint. So it pops up, but you can't switch to it because it's easier. You can solve it over here. You'd still have to at least retype the code here. So that's what I'm experimenting with now. So usually I go back and forth between Parsons problems where you can switch to the write code and write code problems where you can use Parsons as a hint. And again, I'll ask them, what do you have any questions with or problems with? So I try to keep the amount of lecture I do down, not much lecture, more active learning. Whoops. Yeah, and so I do have all these assignments that I used in my class in that test book that I gave you guys all. It's just they're not in that order because I haven't made them that order. But all the assignments are here. If you go into the instructors page, oh, I have to make you all instructors. That's one of the things I was going to do is make you all instructors here so you could see that. Ed TA. This may take me a while. I can't do a group thing, can I?
You can try.
No, I don't think I can. Okay, I'll just do them one at a time. Some of these are my students. It was never intended for a bulk.
You normally don't have that many instructors for a course.
No, we normally don't. Yeah, you can, Brad, if you want to answer any questions in the meantime while I'm doing this. If anybody has questions. Oh, I'm already there.
I have another question if nobody else is asking. I don't want to like hog the question time. Barb, do you have like any big assignments that are in this course?
So I usually do. So in my course I teach, they have a homework assignment every week or a project that's due every 2 weeks. That's bigger. They're not in the book. Those are ones we want them to use Visual Studio Code for. So we usually do have a bigger assignment outside the book. And part of that is we want them to learn to use a debugger, a regular debugger. So that's why we're using Visual Studio Code. In my online course that I was talking about, so I was mentioning that I'm creating online courses somewhere here. You will see some of those assignments. So yeah, if you look at these courses, which are, the caveat to looking at these is once you join a Future Learn course, you only have 4 weeks of free access to look at it. So don't go look at it until you want to, if you want to look at it until you have 4 weeks to actually do something, or otherwise you have to pay right now for access after the 4 weeks. We are moving it. The plan is to move these courses to Coursera in the fall sometime. So when they do that, they would always be available for free. But unfortunately, nobody told me that before I decided to use Future Learn, that they were only available for free for 4 weeks.
Question in the chat that maybe you can talk about, Barb, is whether this works as well with in-person groups next to each other.
The peer instruction? Yes. I mean, other than right now Right now, they don't have to answer in the chat. They could just talk to other people. But like I said, we want to add that. We want to add that feature for giving them points for doing it. Is right now it's just interaction, so they get a point if they interact with it at all. But I want to change that to require the 2 votes or require 2 votes and chat. Or also if they're, depending on whether they're in person or remote. So if they're, I want to have sort of require everybody to use the chat, require just remote people to use the chat. So we want to add those options. They do love talking to each other. I have 150 people in my class and it works fine to have them talk to each other. I have to spend the first 2 weeks getting them used to it. They're so used to not talking in class that it takes me about 2 weeks before, as soon as I say peer instruction, they turn to the person next to them and start talking typically. But those first 2 weeks, myself and I have my GSIs or IAs, my student assistants, roam the room and tell people, hey, have you met this person? What's their name? You guys should be discussing this, so we wander the room trying to make that, okay, this is the norm. At this point, when we say it's peer instruction time, you need to talk to each other. And there'll be occasional, the loners who sit by themselves, who won't talk to anybody no matter what. And so then I send my student assistants to talk to them, or I go sit with them. You won't talk to anybody, you're going to talk to me. And in general, students really like that. They like, oh, it's the same book. So Debbie was asking, has anybody used Chuck Severance's platform, Python for Everybody? So that is the book that I've just made interactive. It's the same book. I didn't add all of his videos yet, but you can get them from there. What was the question here? Works well in person groups. Yep. No, it's not overkill. It's one of the things they really like, is being able to talk to each other in person. But I want to run the experiment of, okay, what about if you talk to the person near you, are they more likely to have the same answer as you? And so does the chat interface help? Because we can directly connect people who have different answers. So we're going to try a mix of those things in the fall. We're going to try some where they have to chat in person if they're in person, some where they have to use, some where they use the chat even if they're in person, some where they don't have to use the chat if they're in person. We want to try both of those. Did someone help Richard? He said, I can't get to the home page. It wants to keep me in test PY for E.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just click on the Runestone logo in the upper left, that'll take you to the home page.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Oh, well, in exam mode, they don't have so Debbie was asking about for Parsons problem. I didn't show that in Runestone. We have a thing called a timed exam. That's how I do all of my midterms in Runestone. So if you're in this book, let me go to the instructors page. Whoops. The Scratch active code is a handy feature. So if you have code that you want to run, you can just copy paste in here and run it whenever you're in the book. But let me show you what a timed exam looks like. So I did put in my midterms in here. And I also give them practice midterms so they can practice with the interface. So you'll see mid 1 timed. So, but I have to make it a timed. So usually what I do is make these a timed assessment with no feedback, no pause. And what is today is the 23rd. Let's say it has to be done by the 24th. Save. Now let's see. I probably have already answered this, but I'll give it a try. But actually, you guys should be able to go to this now that I've made this. Oh, make it visible to students. There we go. If I make it visible to students, if you go back to the table of contents, which you can always do by clicking on this, the name of the book at the top left, and you click on assignments, you'll see win mid 1, win 22 timed. So this is also how I give students assignments. And if I click on that, you'll see that I haven't started this yet. There's time remaining, 80 minutes, because my lectures are 1 hour and 20 minutes. And then when I'm ready, I hit start. And now I can see each question one at a time. I can answer it, but I get no feedback because this is an exam condition. And so the first 15 or so are multiple choice questions, some of them multiple answers. Then I have fill in the blank where I'm supposed to type something. What is the name of the method? It comes after the def keyword that is called when an object is first created. Init. Oops. Somehow I have caps lock on. Anyway, so you type in answers. What will the following print? But there's a bunch of ifs. So it prints a D, I believe. D. So these are fill in the blank questions that you can use regular expressions to match to get to see whether it's correct. And these are Parsons problems. So there is no check me. You just drag everything. And there are distractors here. If is weekend. Return something. I'm not even reading it yet, so just put it together. Else, return something else. Whatever. So there is no check me button on an exam condition. And then for write code problems, they can run code here, so they can test it, but they don't see the results of the hidden unit tests. So I usually have one example or a couple of examples here where I tell them what it should return. And then they can write the code, count equals 0 for num ins if num modulo 2 is equal to 0. So if it's even, count plus equal 1, return count. So I can run the code, I can see the result of whatever I put here, but I don't see the hidden unit tests. And then they have to at least have viewed, you'll notice that questions I've answered are kind of grayed here. I can also, if I look at a question, go like, I'm not sure about that one, I'll flag it for later. That'll make it orange. So I could jump around and answer things in different order. I have to at least have viewed every question before I'll see the finish exam button. And if they do run out of time, it will save all their answers. But I'm at least viewing every question now before I will see the finish exam button. There we go. So now the finish exam button is popped in because people used to click on this after they answered one question, even though it said, make sure you're totally done with the assignment before clicking on finish exam. So, and that finishes their exam. It doesn't tell them any feedback. If they hit refresh, it should grade them, but I guess I didn't set up the grading correctly. So it should show them this. This confuses them a little bit. This is just how many did they get right, wrong? How many did they skip? What percent did they get correct? And I guess I answered nothing. That's interesting. I thought I had answered some. All right. Any other questions? We're nearly at time. Is the June workshop full? Yes, it is right now. Sean, sorry. And what we're planning on doing is that'll be a 3-day workshop on how to use the tool. We'll try to help people create questions and put them in Runestone. We'll talk about the research in more in depth than we did. So for example, the research shows, don't give people points for answered peer instruction questions right or wrong, just give them points for answering them because they're intended to be helpful. Great.
And Brad will be madly coding as we find bugs.
But you've all assisted us in a test today, so we appreciate that. All right, guys, I will post the recording and I'll send you the email, the link to the slides as well. And if you have questions, I guess I should have included our email addresses. Did you put yours? I'll put mine here too. In the chat window is mine. Brad, you can stick yours in. All right.